Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Morgan Taylor, board certified pediatric nurse practitioner, chief nursing officer at Archer Review, and she has deep commitment to nursing education and community building. She has made significant strides in enhancing the preparedness and support for over 500,000 nursing and NP students. Welcome to the show, Morgan.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm excited to be here today.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to discuss right now. We'll talk about revolutionizing nurse education. We'll learn all that from you. But before that, Morgan, if you can share a bit more about about your background, about your journey, so that the audience learns who they are listening to.
Absolutely. So again, I'm Morgan Taylor, and I am a board certified pediatric nurse practitioner. Of course, I started out as a bedside nurse, and my experience is in pediatrics entirely. I love kids dearly. I worked in the pediatric ICU and emergency department at Duke University, and then traveled a bit and worked at other institutions such as Stanford and Boston Children's, all in that ICU and emergency department. That's really where my bedside experience lies. And as I began working in those departments, the transition into being a nurse was very, very overwhelming. There's a lot to be learned to make sure you're doing that job well. And particularly through the years of 2020 and 2021, when we were battling the COVID-19 pandemic, the nurses entering the workforce really became less and less prepared due to no fault of their own, but the systems that were in place weren't serving them very well. And as they entered the workforce, it was hard. It was just very, very challenging. So I began working on developing a curricula with Archer Review that would be technology driven and supportive in an empathetic community that could really help uplift these nurses in ways that provided support for their careers for years to come. And that's really what I'm doing today, is trying to revolutionize the way we approach education, to be supportive from the ground up, to work smarter and not harder, so that we can really grow our nursing workforce to meet the growing demand for nurses that we're seeing.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Morgan. So this is a very different sort of a line. It's not, it is at the end of the day, it is maybe business for some hospitals and all, but it is a very different sort of a business or service. And so when nurses are getting trained, they also know what they are getting into. They know that it's a noble work that they are getting, that it will be high pressure. And people who train them also, the hospitals, they also know that it depends. A lot of lives will depend on the capability of such nurses, such personnel. So why is it that you talk about that you noted critical gaps in nursing education that were affecting new graduates? So why these gaps? What are these gaps, and why are they leaving these gaps? Is it because as you said, so much changed after during COVID or after COVID? So I want to understand that from a common person's perspective, and even for people who want to get the best for themselves when they are not in a very good position. So I help us understand about this particular gap, especially in nursing education.
Absolutely. I'll be the first to say that these gaps are multifactorial. There's no one reason that we have a certain problem or a gap. There are two main things I've identified as major contributing factors that I'm working to at least reduce, if not eliminate. So the first one is traditionally just how we've approached nursing education. It has been in person, face to face, very long lectures. And that type of learning style doesn't work for everybody. I know it was really challenging for me. In addition, the whole attitude towards nursing education has been this saying of, oh, nurses eat their young. We haven't extended a lot of compassion from older generations of nursing to this new next generation of nurse. And by not leading with empathy and not leading with a community support platform, we have set nurses up to not ask for help, to feel like they are alone in very challenging situations, and to end up getting burned out really quickly. 20 years ago, nurses stayed at the bedside on average for 20 years. And now that number is 3 to 4 years. And about 18% of nurses, they actually leave in their first year. So there is a systemic problem about how we educate, treat, and don't really support our novice nurses. We need to do so with understanding and empathy so that they stay for a really long time. Now, the second facet that I believe contributes to this gap is a lack of faculty. We don't have enough nursing faculty to properly mentor and educate this upcoming generation of nurse. It takes time, it takes resources. We're all human. So if I'm assigned a cohort of 100, 150, 200 nursing students, there is just no way I can monitor their progress and provide targeted remediation to all of those students. I'm one human being. So that's the other side of the coin here that we as ed tech innovators have to address. How do we get the faculty platforms that allow them to mentor a growing community of nurses? We need to grow this pipeline of nurses. So we have to do so with empathy from the student side, and we have to have very forward-thinking tech innovations for the faculty side.
Right. So is it a growing burden for nurses in today's time where you need to be human, but also bring in or learn a lot of technology at the same time? Sometimes it can be a bit difficult. We think we can multitask, but there is too much to look for. The gadgets will keep your mind occupied. Any beeps, and everybody gets alarmed. So how easy or difficult it is for a nurse in today's time? Do we need nurses with extra capabilities, or is the nursing education easy to grasp today? What is the general understanding of a nursing professional? Is she being burdened, or is this technology helping her in a way? Because if it has to also help the patients here, if the nurse is not able to grasp everything and able to do her functions well.
You're absolutely right. And we need to do a very good job of thoroughly evaluating how our technology is impacting that nurse, and then how it impacts that nurse will impact our patients down the road. It's all so interconnected. So absolutely, I think the technology, the ed tech innovations coming out are thrilling. And we've got to get very innovative about how we're going to address this growing need for nurses. Globally, we have an aging population. We need more nurses to take care of more people. So if we keep doing what we're doing now, we're just going to get a bigger and bigger gap in the number of nurses we have and the number of nurses we need. There is a global nursing shortage that simply cannot be addressed if we just keep educating the way we always have. I think I mentioned before, most of our traditional nursing education programs, they're in person, face-to-face. We do a 3-hour lecture at a time. We've got maybe 200 students in the classroom. It's not personal, it's not empathetic, and it's not adaptive to the way people learn now. Sitting there and listening for 3 hours, after 50 minutes, I'm checked out. There's no way I'm going to retain all that information. I don't know about you, but it's really challenging. It's complex, and we've got to break down how we deliver that information so we can reach more people and we can do so more effectively.
Right. And one thing more, nowadays there's this shortage of nursing professionals, nurses, shortage of doctors also.
Yeah.
Do you think some hospitals are trying to put technology in the forefront, handing it over to the emergency department nurses and other nurses so that the need for the doctor to come and visit the patient reduces? Is it better for the patient? Is it good for, or not so good for the patient? Because it is almost like nurse is doing the work of a doctor, but but is not a doctor. How do you look at this? Are hospitals expecting the nurses to almost act like doctors, except for a few things that a doctor's signature would require? Help us understand this part. Is it helping? Is it not helping?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And you hit on something I personally think about a lot, which is nurses wear a lot of hats. We in especially during the COVID pandemic had to act as many different roles and really be flexible, which is an amazing part of the nursing profession, but a very challenging one. So when it comes to these technology pieces, where we're asking the nurses to do more with this tech, more with that tech. Maybe we're seeing the doc a little bit less. I fall kind of in the middle here. Our tech innovations are amazing and they do help our patients, but only to a degree that they're facilitated by humans. So, what I always say is they are a wonderful addition, but they're not a replacement. I focus in pediatric primary care. So a question I get asked a lot is, "Hey, do you like telehealth? Do you like doing the telehealth visits, And I say sometimes, because if I have a 2-year-old coming in for a checkup, we do their well child check to fully evaluate if they're hitting their milestones and thriving. I need to put my hands on them. I need to see them running around the room and how they interact. I can't do that on video chat. But when that 2-year-old gets an ear infection a month later and their mom does a telehealth consult at 2 a.m., I can get some pictures of that ear and I can end up calling in some amoxicillin. Middle of the night, they get that medicine the next day, and we've made everybody's life easier. So sometimes those innovations help, but only when they're an adjunct and not a replacement.
Right, Morgan. So how can a nurse then, when they are getting trained, how do they get the best out of the training that is being given in whatever form? How does a nurse decide which training is best for her? Where does she find where is the best place to get that sort of a training? Is it on the job, in a hospital, in some institute? You are an expert. I do not know. But for a nurse, many of these people do not know. They just have that noble intention of being the nurse, get into that profession, serve the world, serve the patients, and also earn a good compensation for the time and energy that they are giving into this particular line. That's very fair.
Absolutely. Now, this is another opinion of mine that really the best place to get that education, to start that thought process, is not on the job, but from day one of nursing school. At my company, we very recently launched a tech-driven human mentorship program that starts at the very beginning of nursing school. Because at least for me, a lot of my training did happen on the job, like you just said. I found a mentor, I found someone that was helpful to me, but I had to seek that out. And I truly believe that if we empower and educate nurses from day one with that empathy and community support, then we will see less burnout. If we really prepare from day one, that's what we're going for. So I highly encourage, if there's any nursing students out there listening, if there's anyone thinking about going into nursing school, really talk to those around you, your professors, your peers, and identify a mentor early on. If you're looking for a mentor and not finding one, Archer Review is a great place to go. There's lots of mentors out there, but you need to connect early so that can carry throughout your training.
Right, Border. Now, in terms of nursing, you have seen how it operates overseas. You have been outside your place of work. So how different or how similar it is in different places and in the place you are?
Absolutely. And the answer is very, very different. So I've worked abroad in Guatemala and Belize are the two main places where I've done extensive work, who both have very different healthcare systems than the United States. And the biggest difference that I have personally witnessed just anecdotally is that in places like the rural village of Guatemala where I lived, or those more rural communities in Belize, healthcare comes to the people. We have very robust community support programs that actually bring wellness out into communities. There's also a bigger focus on preventative medicine, on vaccinations, on really trying to identify chronic health problems early. Where I practice in the United States, we often kind of wait for a disease to treat rather than really promoting health. And it's usually done in clinics, in hospitals, secondary or tertiary locations. So I would love to see a shift to preventative medicine. I'm in primary care, so that's really the heart and soul of what I do. But I also think just the fact of going to the people and getting out in the community emphasizes what I believe as a core value of education too: community support. When we lead with empathy and support our community, whether it's a nurse starting school and we're trying to educate them, or bringing healthcare out and about into our more rural communities, that is how we make sustainable change.
Right, right, Morgan. So in the US, they talk a lot about community. In every second thing that you talk, you hear this word community. From online to offline to everything you do, even politicians talk about community. Why is this community part missing in the US healthcare system? What is your understanding being a part of it?
As a member of the nursing community in United States healthcare, my personal feeling is that really what drives our decision makers at the highest executive level is usually dollar signs. So there's less emphasis on value, and we're starting to see some very positive changes be made there. But less looking at the overall outcome of a human being and more looking at the dollar signs that come from our interactions with them. And again, I think this starts way up at the top at our executive level, and it trickles down to our bedside nurses with what they're being told to prioritize. And I know our patients feel that because we're really not focusing on community support, empathy, all those things they keep saying. So I do think that we need to see shifts in that regard, but I think it has to happen from the top. You know, one nurse really trying to prioritize that empathy and community is wonderful. And there's a lot of nurses out there championing that. But there's less power to influence our overall systems from the bottom. And like I said, when the priority at the top is dollar signs, that inevitably trickles down to the innovations and the resources that we get, and our patients feel that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when they should, when the priority is dollar signs, they should say our priority is dollar sign. They should not use words like patient care and all those things
Yeah.
quoted in all those great words. Straightway say, if you have the money, come get treated. If not, there are other places to go. That would make
Right.
things very clear. The problem is when your communication is quoted in all those, all these sugar coated words, and you talk about money. You want money, but you talk about philanthropy and all those things. Those
Right.
things people can say. Be that whatever it may, Morgan, I want to understand then, in the way this whole nursing profession is going, how do you visualize this a nurse for tomorrow? The way this healthcare system wants a nurse to be and the way you want a nurse to be, is it same, almost same, or starkly different?
I think we're more so on the different end of the spectrum there right now. I do think there's a lot of work being done to align that. But what I see as the vision for nurses of tomorrow, for our next generation of nurses, is nurses that are fully prepared and competent from day one and supported and enabled to really work as a part of a team. I want nurses to not feel like they're alone in this. I want them to know who and when to ask questions of. And I envision a nurse whose tenure at the bedside, once again, is 20 years instead of just 3. For them to be fulfilled and pass that fulfillment on to their patients is ultimately what I hope to see for this next generation. And again, I think it starts with day one of how we educate.
Wonderful. There is much to learn about all this from you, Morgan, and I'm sure a lot of nurses, a lot of other people who want to understand and learn more about this, about you, about the services that you provide. So what's the best way for those who want to connect with you to connect? What's the best way to connect with you?
Absolutely. If you are looking for mentorship, guidance, if you're interested in starting a nursing journey, Archer Review is a great place to get the ball rolling. You can find us online at Archer Nursing. If you're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, that's where you'll find us at Archer Nursing. And head over to our website to see what we may have to help you out. That is archerreview.com.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.